And what is being started here today at Rare Bloom is something that is being done repeatedly throughout the world of individuals gathering to showcase their innovations, their thought leadership, and understanding how to actually move forward. So behind me is what is known as the Cardano roadmap. It's setting the stage of a robust framework for critical infrastructure. Now, so Cardano has been designed of all of these formal specifications for a rollout approach for planned decentralization and also planned participation. And so on our first, okay, there we go. Now I see the difference here. There's the next slide in front of me and then the main slide behind me. But that's what happens when you go first. You figure this out. So here we are on the critical infrastructure roadmap of Cardano. And this is what really kind of makes Cardano different, is that it's been built to be inclusive for different market segments. Now, with Shelley came the participation of the network operation itself. We're a leader in decentralization. We have over 3,000 stake pools today, which are validating transactions on the network, producing blocks, and being rewarded for this. We're also a leader in participation through utility, and that's with Goguen. And that's where we're looking at, how is it that we can leverage a blockchain for some sort of application, whether it be a data representation, a token, an application such as a DEX, and more. And this will continue. Part of this continuation is looking at not just for people participating, but also supporting the development of the ecosystem's growth. Now, here's the recent on-chain stats just to kind of show you how far we've come. So we're now considered to be a utility house in the industry with over 6 million assets minted on-chain, over 3 million wallets. More than half of them, 1.9 million, are actively supporting the security of the network by staking their ADA or delegating it to pools. All numbers are continuing to increase, and that is something that we will probably experience for years and years to come. So with Vassal, which has just occurred, this is what's leading us into more scalability and higher levels of optimization. So is there a way to deliver transactions at lower cost and have higher throughput and have this support of layer 2 capabilities? So it's a very important and critical time for the ecosystem to realize the potential of what public blockchain infrastructure can deliver. Now, part of this is looking at the future of sustainability, and that's been embedded in the monetary policy of Cardano. So what you're looking at here is kind of the distribution of reserves, or about 30% of all ADA has been set aside to incentivize this active participation by a broad ecosystem, and there are rewards for that. There's one part of this which is looking at how do we actually maintain a reward for network operators, and then we also have the on-chain treasury, which from the reserves itself, it will be distributing 2.8 billion ADA around the world in these 94 countries within these thousands of builders on the blockchain itself. But that's not all when we talk about sustainability. Value propositions is not just going to be delivered through core tech alone. It's an age-old problem. The best tech is not what wins the market. And so when we're thinking about this, we have to think about societal change of how we come together inclusively to interact on this new paradigm. And this is that map. What we're looking at here is what is known as an ecosystem, what is our long-term development strategy? How do we as stakeholders really interact with one another, not just for launching an application, but for inviting people to participate in the evolution of Cardano from its base layers and above. So I'd like to take some time to kind of go through this slide, as from the Cardano Foundation's perspective, this is the future of how we can increase the level of participation beyond the core ecosystem today, but of those users of tomorrow, which is to target enterprises, it's to target banks and financial institutions, non-governments, and a whole breed of developers that are looking to generate additional value. So starting with the layer 1 protocol, when we're looking at the evolution of Cardano, there is a system of having a members-based organization. The currently over 140 research papers have been created out of input-output, or IOG, and they are the core developer of Cardano. Now, when we move into that stage of Voltaire, this is a kind of a change management system inside the ecosystem where it's no longer going to be based off of one core entity that's driving this development. And we want to have not just stake pool operators running the network, but also participating in the decisions that affects them. So we're looking at parameters. We're looking at the actual economic incentives that run the blockchain. We're looking at decisions that will affect the thousands of companies that's building on top of the network. So ensuring that we have a voice that's, broadly speaking, for all stakeholders is very necessary within this members-based organization. Now, how that gets delivered, it is still yet to be determined, but that's the part of the thought process that we're having. And we've had these discussions for several months. Many of them has been a deep dive back in this past March with I/O during a strategy meetup where we recognized this importance for ensuring sustainability for years and years to come. If we're going to be able to approach enterprises, we don't just want them to launch applications, but we also want them to be a part of building out this infrastructure. Moving up on that is the value creation stage, which is looking at the core technology stack. So we have very secure, scalable infrastructure. But then how does the real world actually connect to the blockchain? And there are many different pillars that's required to make blockchains more usable and to deliver higher value applications. And I'll dive into that on the next slide. But mainly, it's trying to ensure that the blueprints that we have, the thought leadership that we have, what we say that Cardano can do is what gets delivered. And that is what is meant to be saying that as infrastructure, Cardano as a public blockchain is predictable, it's reliable, and it's resilient to different cycles and attacks. And as we build out this core technology stack, this will enable much more value to be captured by different businesses. And when we're looking at different businesses, the question is, what kind of users do you want on the Cardano blockchain? And we have kind of categorized this into 4 different groups. One of which is looking at dApps, looking at NFT projects. It's looking to understand frameworks that they can use to discuss trends for innovations and how to bring more maturity to these use cases. And there are specific industry groups such as the NFT Guild, the Cardano SSI Alliance, the Cardano DeFi Alliance, which are kind of discussing these major topics. How do we verify the authenticity of an NFT? How do we implement a standard for digital identity across the network? Now, outside of that, we look at upgrading legacy systems of the world. So having people augment their existing value chains with blockchain technology. And this is for real-world integration across different industries. Now, one way of looking at this as long-term development strategy is also, another title is for platform maturity, or ensuring that there are more ways to bring out stakeholder participation and value based at every level of the blockchain itself. So let's dive a bit into what that core technology stack actually is. And here is where, from the foundation's perspective, is where the majority of strategic assets will be deployed in order to ensure broad capabilities of value creation for users on the blockchain. Now, our first pillar is looking at the trust layer, and it is all of these different components of what is needed to deliver high value and advanced applications. So integrated digital ID systems, having assurance for the applications, looking at audit systems built into on-chain records. Now, it's not just important for people to use a blockchain and say they're using a blockchain, but how do those blockchain records get used? How do we ensure that for utility that's generated on-chain becomes the single source of truth? That's part of all normalizing the use of public blockchain infrastructure. So outside of the trust layer, we very much focus on the integration layer. This is looking at financial institution support, looking at different payment rail systems, different ways to connect payment systems to the ADA cryptocurrency and other native assets. And here we have a financial and regulatory institution team at the foundation, where we currently manage around 170 different partners today. And many times this is understanding how do they connect to the Cardano blockchain? Which component of the blockchain do we need to focus on for increased capabilities for throughput, for speed, and bringing out greater efficiency for these mass market players. And then the infrastructure layer is ensuring that we can have open source infrastructure that is available for thousands of people to use. And we have our open source team, which is also supported from our board level and also internally at Cardano Foundation, that doesn't just look at supporting the standards, but that we have industrial grade components that can be leveraged by high quality participants such as nation states, governments, or these large enterprises. And all of that would then be empowering these financial services to be delivered, knowing that the Cardano blockchain is an end-to-end solution to enable that paradigm of public infrastructure. Now, a couple things that I'll be speaking about tomorrow will be diving deeper into some of these relationships that we've been able to achieve. One of them is working with the National Wine Agency in the country of Georgia, where we're supporting a traceability system for all wines coming from the country. And this relationship is important for three key reasons. The first one is that this is a non-paid relationship with the government. They are choosing to use Cardano. Secondly, is understanding how do we deliver these public-private partnerships. If we're really going to get real-world adoption and have entities use the Cardano blockchain, this is not a simple process. Today, real decentralization and adoption just hasn't really worked just yet. And the reason that we're being so close with them is because we need to have this level of training, education, and experience with not just the government, but also the local participants. And what our third point for this is that what it represents is a new model for how industry members can relate to one another, how to leverage core blockchain technology for traceability systems and showcase supply chain data, and then use this to target other industries, both within the agricultural sector, but then in other industries where real supply chain track and trace solutions are deemed necessary. And from this relationship, the expectation is that we will be able to support part of this core technology stack with helping to look at international standards for information that needs to be brought to the blockchain, these authentication systems, the connections with financial institutions, and all becoming open infrastructure that others can use to capture in their businesses. Recently, we also worked with the University of Zurich to bring on a compliant digital certificate on-chain. And with this, it was about creating new standards for digital assets. And so while NFTs are great, NFTs are also just the beginning. Now, how do we ensure interoperability with the Web 2 world or the rest of the world? And so this application was very much focused on that, which was implementing a new standard for open badges on the Cardano blockchain. And what this enabled us to do is to have the digital asset have a built-in verification system. So when you are receiving this, you are able to trust that this is an authentic certificate issued out by the University of Zurich. Now, as we do these pilot programs, what we're aiming to do is to understand, what are the mass market adoption trends that Cardano can serve as this category leader. And through that process, we're enabled to enlarge the Cardano ecosystem. We're enabled to work with the thousands of projects building on Cardano for implementation. We're able to participate in these processes for establishing standards and understanding what is critical market infrastructure that is needed to take these applications out of an initial use, out of a pilot use, and into scalable use across markets and industries. So with that, I'd like to kind of then reintroduce who is Cardano Foundation. We are a Swiss-based foundation that is focused on driving the adoption of public blockchain technology. We have this mindset of thinking global, acting global, and showing local through the partners that we work with. Due to that, and the implementation of the core technology stack for the broad value creation activities, this is how we were able to deliver the most impact with the limited resources and time that we have in order to ensure that Cardano is getting that positive adoption. And as we realize our goals, this is how to institutionalize the use of public blockchain infrastructure and de-risk the adoption efforts by current entities that like to have control of all of their operations within one box. Now, these tangible improvements of the core technology stack is very much aimed at world populations, and it's very much aimed at world systems, be it financial or social. Now, as the rest of the Cardano community continues to build, gain users, showcase the values of blockchain, we will go from the existing 3 million wallets to 10 million wallets, to 20 million wallets. And what's important at that time is that the connections to the Cardano blockchain are future-proofed for scalability, for throughput, and for ensuring that we have this economic identity that can be realized. So with that, I would like to say thank you for everyone who's coming here today. Thank you for participating in the Rare Bloom movement. And thank you as well for trusting in Cardano to deliver on the value of public blockchain infrastructure.